I'm as far left as and as insane progressive as there is, but how could we have cooked up the worst political slogan of a generation with defund the police? Like we're a bunch of suburban socialists. Lol. I love this take. I love that people have this take over and over again, as though like black communities are actually super fond, marginalized communities are actually super fond of the police, and it's the white people that don't like cops. And cops absolutely are not treating motherfucking senior art critic in the New York Magazine.
New Vegas,
like the entire existence of the police force is to make sure guys like Jerry Saltz, who live comfortable lives in a fucking Brooklyn brownstone, away from the
Pogo people, Pogo me, and
outskirts of the recently gentrified areas where like black and brown people live. Okay, it's so strange to me that people make this argument as though like, oh yeah, are there fucking white academic focused socialists out there? Yes, certainly. But it's so fucking stupid that we make this seem like this is a hyper socialist movement, and then they always point to like older black conservatives as the reason as to why like black people actually love the police. Also, ultimately,
got accepted into college wide.
The abolition of the police force, even for like police abolitionists, still comes with a replacement. Okay, defunding the police is not abolishing the police, and even abolishing the police is not about full-blown police abolition. There has to still be some form of organized unit that maintains the presence of law and order, which is what the police do.
8-month pog.
Perhaps the reason why defund the police was seen as a bad slogan because it didn't get the same kind of momentum that Black Lives Matter got, even though Black Lives Matter originally was a bad slogan too. It always was a bad slogan. BLM was considered a bad slogan when all of these like rich white liberals said BLM is, you know, a little too much. Like, I don't understand. It's so hard to remember that now. It feels like it was a different universe, and you're never going to believe me because of the overwhelming sea of support we saw for Black Lives Matter and how much it's gotten commoditized at this point, that Walmart is like throwing up the black fist and saying Black Lives Matter. So it's so dumb that we have these arguments over and over again. It also didn't even become a tangible policy position. Anyway, they said BLM was exclusionary. Why do fucking rich white people insist on seeing every socio-political conflict through the myopic lens of their own self-actualization? Okay, Bo Burnham.
Hassle.
It's hyper-individualistic American attitudes. That's what it is. If there should not be defunding of the police. If anything, more funds are required to improve the police system, higher regulations. Yeah, that's crazy, man. Police funds have
Did you know him
have become gigantic over the past like 60 years, and yet you know, police brutality is great. It's just totally abolished. More funds definitely are working out well for the cops. Less police brutality overall.
8 months pog.
For sure. Direct correlation. Give them more money so they can give them more money so they can, you know, build better legal teams for when they murder 14-year-old black kids and stuff.
Test everything that
and also better weapons to crush protesters with.
From this clown.
Like, everybody wants accountability. Black people, white people, everyone wants cops to actually protect and serve. I don't think that's a ridiculous fucking ask, okay? That's all people want. They want cops to actually protect and serve their communities rather than operate as an occupying force, which is what they do. Cops, to a wealthy white person, or just a wealthy person in general in a nice neighborhood,
9 months
is a presence of law and order, like creates and instills a presence of law and order. But in black and brown neighborhoods, the presence of police create a presence of disorder and lawlessness because they operate above the law. It should have been reform the police. Everyone agrees with that. Even the police. We progressives are idiots, babe. It's a wonder we can even feed ourselves. We're right. We do not know how to talk to people or win when winning is ours. Gotta love us. Yeah, totally. My man said babe. Why are you being a dumb? He was obviously talking about funds to the right areas, not fund to militarization of the police, like training and psychology. Dude, that doesn't happen. It has not happened. It used to be called community policing. Okay? And it still is. Reform is yet another way for police budgets to inflate and take all that additional funds to, you know, not train properly, but instead to buy military surplus gear. And it's not necessarily the funds that is the issue. The real issue is a clear lack of accountability. Start by civilian-led police departments first, where there's more oversight. Anyway, defund the police is the dumbest idea. Giving less money to the police won't solve the problem. You guys got it. You're right. Yes. If the NYPD, instead of getting $6 billion, got $5 billion the next year, that would mean that all cops are dead on the streets. We have vigilante groups, you know, mob justice is occurring, lynching is happening all over. The additional $1 billion going to trying to manage the socioeconomic conditions in which like crime exists, in which crime is a reality. That we shouldn't fix any of that. We should just keep trying to throw band-aids on the problem over and over again.
1 year Poggies, thanks for being the best left voice on Twitch.
We talked about this so many times, but I guess it just doesn't matter. We love to name things stupid, disconnected, or unclear names. Look at CRT, named by academics and now purely on the name. Republicans are making it out to be something it isn't. Yeah, because they're fucking academics. They're not having a conversation. Critical race theory isn't for like normies, dude. Like it's for legal scholars. What the fuck is this take? I'm sorry, legal scholars should be diluting their naming conventions because one day the reactionaries could take hold of it and weaponize it against whatever they see fit. Yeah, I know that if legal scholars named it, instead of critical race theory, they named it like racism in law, I'm sure that would have automatically and magically changed the minds of those at the Manhattan Institute, a think tank specifically created to bastardize said concepts and create like an outrage machine. They would have turned around and been like, damn it, how are we going to stop these guys now? Oh, well, I guess I'm magically not going to look for new cultural things that I can start an outrage over. Manufacture outrage over. Shit, dude. Fuck. You have to admit, though, if you talk to black people, you see defund the police isn't exactly a simple universal thing. One big issue is it's felt police response times in black areas are far too slow. That's literally not even a feeling. It's just the truth. Isn't it like double? Police response time in black neighborhoods, isn't it like double on average? So yeah, it's not just a feeling. It is the truth. That's not because the police are not funded enough. It's because they hyper focus on areas that they want to focus on. So giving more money to the police should have improved response times so far. It's not a funding problem. It's an attitude problem, I guess. Or it's where they want to use their funding. Anyway, I live in Minneapolis and the police literally just stopped coming into calls in the reaction to the outrage. Yeah. How do you reform this? This is 76-year-old Gwen Levi, who was returned to prison for not answering a call from her federal probation officer while in this computer class. They told her lawyer, because she could have been robbing a bank, we're going to treat her as if she was robbing a bank. Dude, I always assume that 76-year-olds are robbing banks. Everybody's got like a little bit of fascism in them, you know? They just want to they don't want to deal with the complex problems, and fascism offers like a pretty solid, wonderful story for you in the form of a solution, which is like, well, crime is an issue. How do we deal with it? Give the cops tanks, okay? it'll be a war between the good guys and the bad guys. The good guys being the cops who are supposed to be our protectors, and the bad guys being the criminals who are bad because they're just bad. They're just bad people. They're not bad or engage in bad actions as a consequence of their socioeconomic conditions, their material conditions. They're bad because they're just bad people. They're evildoers. But we need a good guy, like an Avengers force, to come in and just like wipe them out, beat their asses into submission. Well, that's how we got here. That's how we justify a horrific, dehumanizing criminal justice system that is responsible for a quarter of the world's incarcerated population here in America. Despite only being 4% of the world's entire population, we cage the world's, a quarter of the world's entire prisoner population.
It's coming, the baby is coming.
Polomism is less fascist than America's current carceral system. Oh, pretty, nah, that's worse. Polomism is the only theory or attitude I've ever seen that's like worse than the American carceral system. I mean, it literally revolves around straight up throwing criminals into the meat grinder. No, that's pretty fascist. All right, let's see what Bernie's saying.
We are living through a completely unprecedented time in the American economy, and things are so confusing and novel that major trusted newspapers can't even seem to agree on the basics of what's happening. New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, both have reports about the effect of cutting unemployment benefits in Missouri and the impact it's had on the job market. The Wall Street Journal, which I would say generally tends to align its POV with that of business, appears to suggest that cutting unemployment benefits has seen an uptick of people in Missouri returning to the workforce. Quote, the number of unemployment benefit recipients is falling at a faster rate in Missouri and 21 other states, canceling enhanced and extended payments this month, suggesting that ending the aid could push more people to take jobs. While the New York Times seems to be suggesting basically the opposite. Quote, workforce development officials have said they have seen virtually no uptick in applicants since the governor's announcement, which ended a $300 weekly supplement to other benefits. But perhaps the most interesting thing here is that both papers...
I think we should just force them to go back to work at gunpoint. I don't understand. Like, if they have a tidy little amount of money saved up from all of the additional welfare that they got, we have to starve them out. And if we can't starve them out, we should just force them back to literally flipping burgers for me so I can yell at them at gunpoint. This is the way to solve it. Yeah. Don't pay them more. That would be unacceptable. You know, because then the cost of a burger could be raised by 30%. You know, corporations will never be able to figure out will never be able to readjust their pricing or other areas that they spend money on in an effort to improve wages. Like, they'll never eat into the profit margin. They'll raise the prices. Okay, they'll raise the prices by how much? 30 cents? Oh, no.
Papers also cite the same St. Louis hotel's recent hiring spree to back up their report. While the Wall Street Journal seems to imply those jobs were filled because unemployment insurance was cut off, stating that no one showed up to their job fair until 2 weeks ago, when the Element St. Louis Midtown Hotel had a breakthrough with 40 job seekers. New York Times, however, includes what the Wall Street Journal leaves out: the hotel's increase in both wages and benefits. The hotel, which is on a major bus line, raised its starting wage to $13.50 an hour, the second increase in 2 months. It also offers benefits and a $50 a month transportation allowance. The number of applicants shot up to 40 from a handful the previous month after the second wage increase.
And even that's not enough, but hey, you know.
Same state, same economic story, two very different conclusions. Senator Bernie Sanders, independent from Vermont, is the chairman of the powerful Senate Budget Committee. Last year, he fought to get Americans $600 extra of unemployment benefits in that COVID stimulus bill, which was then continued, and he joins me now.
You're the reason I can't get my burgers, brother. What the fuck? You're the reason my favorite burger joint no longer has the same amount of slaves, brother. What the fuck? I hate you, Bernardo. I don't even think this is as big as a problem. Maybe in like my neighborhood or the areas that I've been in Los Angeles, I don't see a lot of businesses. It is purely anecdotal.
Hassle.
I don't see a lot of businesses suffering from, a lack of enthusiastic people trying to get jobs. But then again, it is purely
I work for my state's
sampling bias. It's purely anecdotal. I'm sure it could be happening in other places. But regardless, the solution is, probably higher wages.
This has become an ongoing question among economists, and I want to take a sort of open mind to it because it does seem to me like it's not an insane idea to think at the margins it might be having some effects of people's behavior. What is your sense when you look out and see that all these Republican governors have unilaterally taken the step to cut their folks off this extra supplement, and what it means for people and what it means for job markets?
Well, from day one, Republicans opposed adding a supplement to normal unemployment.
If you go more into depth into if you raise wages, the cost of everything goes up argument, it's bullshit. First and foremost, a lot of these corporations, a lot of these businesses have a profit margin that they can tap into and lower the profit margin for owners and those who have an ownership stake in the business in an effort to improve the wages, in an effort to increase the wages. Another thing that they can do is, yes, increase the cost, right, to the consumer. Same with small businesses. I don't know why people say, what about small businesses? Same with small businesses. Now, it is the same with small businesses. You're like looking at edge cases no matter what, which the government could help and eliminate that burden. Ultimately, no matter which way you cut it, like prices and cost is increased steadily, whereas wages have remained stagnant. So clearly, it's not just about the cost of labor. So what's up with that? Why don't we ever fucking question it in that regard? Like, it literally still, like, cost of a burger goes up regardless. Cost of many things have gone up regardless of how much you pay the labor. And the answer should always be, so what? It's not going to go up by $10. People falsely assume that if wages increase by $10, then so does the burger. That's not how that works. I don't know why people literally think like, we're going to pay $20 for a taco. Like, that's not how that works, you fucking idiot. It's not like a one-to-one. That's not how it works. Just look at any other country where the minimum wage is significantly higher and how much they pay for burgers, and you will understand. I do not have a problem with a 30-cent increase, especially if that means that people's wages will increase tremendously. As I was saying, it's a very silly notion that it is going to be completely unmanageable and that people are not going to be able to pay. If you can't afford to pay your workers, your business model has failed. Why are these small business tyrants allowed to act like they own slaves? Yeah, that's the other counter to it, which is like, what is the point in which it's acceptable to subjugate your servants to wage slavery? Like, okay, well, my business will fail if I have to pay my workers more. Oh, damn, dude, that's crazy. I can't believe your business is going to fail because you priced in like near slave labor to your business model. Okay. I mean, I guess that we should justify slavery too then. There's room and board that comes along with slavery. You could be a serf.
And at a time when tens of millions of people are working for starvation wages, their theory is if you have low unemployment benefits, you can starve people back to work. And obviously, I think that is unacceptable. I think one of the things that's happening is a lot of people right now are rethinking work, and they're sick and tired of working for wages that are totally inadequate. And that is why, by the way, we are moving aggressively to a reconciliation bill, which is going to create millions of good-paying jobs, rebuilding America in many, many ways.
So you segue to what I want to talk about in the reconciliation bill. A lot of back and forth on this. Here's how I understand the state of play. There is going to be a reconciliation bill. Everyone agrees on that up to Joe Manchin, right? There's 50 Democrats ready for that and the president, Joe Biden. So is that part is clear, right? I'm right that there will be a reconciliation bill that moves this year.
I expect that is true.
Okay. What is in that bill, the size of it, and whether whatever infrastructure compromise is ultimately signed only contingent on his passage are the things being fought over right now? Is that also right?
Chris, one of the things that has bothered me in the last month or so is there's a lot of talk about numbers, 6 trillion, big number. A lot of talk about process. You know what there is not a lot of talk about? About the needs of working class Americans and what we have got to do. So the truth is that real wages in America today are lower than they were 48 years ago. The very, very rich are getting richer. And what some of us are saying is if we're going to retain the faith of the American people in their government, we're going to have to stand up for them and not just the big money interests. So let me just tell you what is going to be in this bill. First of all, you got to deal with climate. Right now, the West Coast is, aflame in a sense. It's record-breaking heat wave, Australia, etc. We have got to deal with climate. And if we do not significantly invest in transforming our energy system, future generations will never forgive us. Today, Chris, we have the highest rate of childhood poverty.
I think Bernie's being ridiculous, dude. I find it totally normal and, as a matter of fact, awesome and cool that Portland is 135 degrees like it's fucking Arizona. No, it's a very normal thing that the Pacific Northwest now unironically feels like Texas. It's wild to see these changes happen right in front of our eyes in such an immediate and tangible way. Because one of the big problems with climate change is that it's not tangible. Like the impact, the most devastating impacts of climate change, we're not supposed to see right now. So you always offset. You always can just kick the can down the road because you're like, well, it's not going to happen to me. It doesn't really matter. Or it's climate, it's just like uncontrollable. So it's kind of wild to actually see it with these irregular, extreme weather conditions and cataclysmic events occurring with such high frequency in comparison to previous years, with the weather changing so dramatically and so rapidly right in front of our fucking eyes. And everyone's like, yeah, whatever. Who cares? Who cares? Fuck it. Who cares, dude? It's fine. It's all right. I ordered some more stuff. Yeah, I ordered Bang energy drink, actually. Yeah. From the PNW, felt like opening an oven yesterday.
Of any major country on earth. That is why we have to extend or make permanent the child tax credit. $300 per child for working class families. Does anyone deny that our child care system is totally dysfunctional? We have got to deal with that. In the richest country on earth, you got elderly people who have no teeth in their mouth because Medicare does not cover dental. We don't cover hearing aids. We don't cover eyeglasses. We have got to do that. We
won't even do healthcare in this country. I've given up on America almost completely at this point. Like, we won't even do healthcare coverage for our. We won't even do healthcare coverage for our citizens. So I don't know why we would even give a shit about climate change. In a lot of instances, climate change, at the very least, like, targets lower people in like worse economic conditions, right? Like the immediate target is almost always like poor people. So So that's one way that, or that's one reason that people don't give a shit. It's like rich people can avoid it, i.e., you know, Theodore Jebediah Cruz. Like when climate change hits, or when extreme weather conditions cause blackouts in Texas, you can just go to Cancun. I can just go to Cancun. And it don't matter to me. I'll go watch my porn-a-rooney in Cancun. Where it's like poor people are fucking suffering. So that's one reason why people don't really care about it as much. Because things that impact the poors, well, they're easier to avoid and cast aside. Or when you think about what's going on in Puerto Rico with a completely destroyed infrastructure ripe for devastation in the immediate aftermath of a climate disaster. Because people don't care.
Got to have universal pre-K. We have got to have a major housing bill because you got 500,000 people who are sleeping out on the streets and 18 million households spending 50% of their limited incomes on housing. We've got to make higher education affordable. Those are the issues that are important to the American people, and that is why we need a major reconciliation bill to start addressing the crises facing ordinary Americans.
So I know you don't want to talk process, and I understand that. I don't really love to anyway, but I just want to be clear on this. Like, those things are...
Please, can you explain theocratic distributism? No, I don't know what the fuck theocratic distributism is, dude. What the fuck? What is that? Like some sort of fucking... I guess it's like ecumenical Marxism, kind of, I would assume. Is that what it is? Like Islamic communism or Catholic communism? You don't need to know all this stuff. Okay? Jesus Christ. No, it isn't. I don't know. I don't know what it is. I actually don't know what it is. Let's keep going.
You view as part of the reconciliation packages, you would like that you want
that
to see
is
moved,
the reconciliation package. What do you think it is?
Right.
It is that, and it is lowering the cost of prescription drugs. It is progressive tax reform that says that maybe, just maybe, Jeff Bezos and other billionaires should start paying their fair share of taxes. That is what we are.
Well, then research it. No, you fucking idiot. I'm not going to research a theocratic distributism. What the fuck? Shut up. Shut the fuck up, dumbass. I don't care. And you're fucking stupid for caring. How about that?
Talking about. And this is what the American people want. This is what we've got to do.
Are you at all? I mean, I think between what's happened in the wake of the great financial crisis, I think with interest rates, like I am the number one person who says deficits are not to be worried about. I know that this would be paid for largely with tax increases. I guess, is there some part of you that worries about a level of spending that is too much for the economy to basically deal with in one fell swoop?
Well, this is what I think. And I got to be honest with you and tell you, we're still working on this. But as of now, we are assuming that we're going to pay for all of the new programs, paid family and medical leave, child care, housing, all of the ongoing programs by demanding that the wealthiest people and largest corporations start paying their fair share of taxes. But let me tell you, Chris, what I think most economists would agree with. And that is at a time when we have record-breaking low interest rates, now is precisely the time to borrow and invest in one-time infrastructure projects. So that is kind of the premise that we're operating under.
I was, again, talking to my mom about this, the Miami building collapse, where 11 are dead, 150 are still accounted for and unaccounted for in the Miami building collapse. And this is some Turkish-ass shit right here, boys. I mean, this is actually Turkish shit. And Ken Klippenstein posted something that I also retweeted that triggered the nerds on the internet about how Ron DeSantis was running a deregulation, deregula mania or whatever the fuck. around a similar time when this collapse happened, right? And people were saying, well, actually, that's about like deregulating licensing for nail salons. It has nothing to do with, that has nothing to do with housing regulation. And it's such a cowardly way. It's such a fucking cowardly way to get out of defending your positions. I'm pleased to announce our upcoming Florida Deregathon. The Deregathon will take place on Thursday, January 31st in Valencia College to identify and eliminate burdensome government regulations that are hurting our businesses and stifling private sector competition. So, here's the problem. So is strawmanning and making fun of people with opposing views, KEGW. Here's the issue. While Deregathon specifically might not have anything to do with like building code, deregulation in the Republican Party and the second part of like what he's talking about, identifying and eliminating burdensome government regulations that are hurting our businesses and stifling private sector competition, is precisely at the heart of why the homeowners association didn't act quick enough, or whoever like manages the condominium didn't act quick enough in focusing on and immediately fixing some of these problems. Okay? And this is precisely what people love about Florida. Florida has had massive booms and massive growth in apartments and apartment complexes, as I've talked about already. It's still ongoing. Originally, it was cocaine in the 80s and 90s. That was a massive reason for why there were so many condos just being built like crazy. I mean, that same engineer that made this structure also made another apartment nearby in that exact same region, and that apartment hasn't blown up. And part of the reason for why that apartment hasn't blown up is apparently that apartment has a better maintenance than this one. And leaving it up to the individual rather than enforcing harsh regulatory checks led by local governments is precisely at the heart of why things like this happen. You have to enforce homeowners and condominium owners to abide by certain checks that are going to make this process more expensive. Okay? If you don't, and if you leave it up to like random ass individuals in charge of managing a fucking condominium project like this, they are going to think about offsetting the cost as best as possible. 11 have definitely died so far in this major structural damage, and 150 are not found yet. And I don't know how many of those people we'll ever find. Problems get ignored in situations like this because it's too expensive to fix. And guess what? This is significantly more costly too. Yeah, maybe in the short term, not immediately fixing this. Not immediately fixing like structural damage. That would make sure that the foundation is stronger, make sure that the pipes are not corroded, make sure that the steel beams underneath the pool are not getting damaged as a consequence of not having like the appropriate overflow for the pool or whatever the fuck happened over the course of many years. Might actually help you save money in the short term, but now you fucked up. Now you have no life, okay? Now you died. In the long term, that's probably way more costly too. The people that live in properties like this, in condos like this, also are the very same ones that oftentimes agree with the deregulation. Because many of you are thinking that this was a condo that was for rent. It's not. These were people who owned. A lot of those people owned their own condos. So a lot of these people had at least somewhat of a say. I think a lot of the residents actually were complaining, from what I understand, about the condominium, about the building, and the many issues. And I'm sure there were still people that were renting, of course. But ultimately, these decisions should not be left to random people who want to put short-term profit or push back costs. So homeowners deserve it? No, absolutely not. My point is, there should be more government involvement in these sorts of things, but places like Florida, and in most places actually, as a matter of fact, realtors, real estate developers, and homeowners run the fucking country or run their local governments. They run everything. What they want goes. That's the reason why we still have a massive homelessness problem in many parts of the country. That makes homeownership more and more expensive, and it prices out so many people that creates more homelessness. And the solution to that is public housing, but public housing would greatly lower prices for the homes that currently exist. So that's, if you're looking at home ownership not from the point of view of like personal property, but rather as a investment, and many people do, you're always going to be against social housing. You're always going to be against public housing because you don't want your investment to depreciate. What did I tell you guys about the New York mayoral race? It does not matter who becomes the mayor of New York because New York is run by, whether it's Bill de Blasio, who is the most progressive mayor in recent history and probably will be the most progressive mayor of New York, who even said at a certain point in his life that he was a democratic socialist. Lol. It doesn't matter who's the fucking mayor, whether it's Rudy Giuliani, Michael Bloomberg, or Bill de Blasio, because the real mayor of New York, or the real local government there, is real estate developers, Wall Street, corporations, and business interests. That's who runs New York City. Homeowners in a condo only own the space between the main walls and the structure of the building, so ultimately the responsibility of checking the structural integrity falls 100% on the building owner, not the residents. Though the residents can certainly put pressure on the owners to take necessary steps to have third parties check for issues. They did do that.
A lot of news we want to get to this morning, starting with the latest on that deadly building collapse in Florida. Overnight, hundreds of people gathering for this candlelight vigil.
Another emotional night there, and here's what we know right now. 11 people are confirmed dead, 150 people still unaccounted for, and this morning we're learning more about the possible warning signs before that collapse.
ABC's Victor Okendo has been on the scene from the start of this story and joins us now from Surfside, Florida with the latest. Good morning, Victor.
Good morning, Michael. We are now into day 6 of the urgent search and rescue operation here. There are so many questions about how this could have happened. Families still desperate for word on their loved ones as we continue hearing these incredible stories of survival.
This morning, officials holding on to hope, insisting that the search for the 150 people missing in the Surfside condo collapse is still a rescue mission, not a...
At least this will maybe get, in a very weird and dark way, maybe this will kick some people's asses that own condos into like actually taking the necessary precautions. You know what I mean? Like the reasonable fear that they now have could potentially lead them to force their management companies to take action. Because I know that there were residents that brought issues up. I know that there were residents there that said that the building is in a state of disarray and there needs to be improvements done. And those fell on deaf ears, unfortunately. Terrifying.
recovery.
Our top priority continues to be search and rescue and saving any lives that we can.
This as the death toll climbed to 11, 3 more victims identified. Overnight, hundreds attending a vigil for the dead and missing on a nearby beach. Now more than 300 rescue crews racing against the clock to try to find those still missing, battling treacherous conditions one worker falling 25 feet down the rubble.
It's not an issue of we could just attach a couple of cords to a concrete boulder and lift it and call it a day.
Crews hopeful that as the building pancaked down, pockets of air or voids could have formed in the rubble, potentially trapping survivors, keeping them alive.
There's certain areas that we have not gotten to, but we've been able to place cameras that seem to have large enough spaces, voids, that occupants may still be in there.
Rescuers finding some of those voids, but unfortunately, nobody inside so far. Michael Noriega's grandmother has not been found, but 2 of her treasured family photos were just feet from the site, and that gives him hope.
We want to stand in the gap in the middle for so many people that were directly or indirectly affected by this, to give them hope that they're not alone.
This as stories of survival come to light from that horrific night.
What unit were you in?
705. If I'm in 704, I'm dead.
Steve Rosenthal was asleep in his apartment when the building started collapsing. He remembers his neighbors' cries for help.
People were yelling, help me, get me out.
He's filed
I feel like they're taking too long to find survivors. Dude, that's an insane take, okay? Do you know how difficult this is when a building like this collapses, when a building pancakes? Or maybe you don't know, so I'll explain it to you. When a building like this collapses, it's not as simple as like, oh yeah, let's drill in and like find people. You can't do that because the only thing keeping people, 150 people alive, theoretically, is potential pockets where like a steel beam helped, a steel beam like created an area where they could have technically survived. Okay? There's a little air pocket. It basically, the roof caved in, but a steel beam is like holding it up, like a little baby area. If someone got very, very lucky, okay? It's basically like deadly Jenga. If you were to immediately drill in, you could be drilling into a person. If you were to slowly but surely remove certain parts of the debris, then you could be reshifting the weight so that those tiny pockets can no longer hold or withstand the actual, the actual pressure and cave in on top of someone who might be alive down there still. So they can just die of dehydration in the meanwhile. There's also the other problem of sending people in there. There is no foundation. There is no structural integrity. So when you send workers in there, when you send firefighters in there, they're already inhaling a fuckload of debris, which will cause a tremendous amount of long-term complications like cancer, things like that. But even before that, you're sending them into an area where there's no structural integrity and it could potentially fall on top of them and kill them.
Lawsuit against the condo association. 88-year-old Esther Gorfinkel, also lucky to be alive, escaping from her 5th floor apartment, rescued by a group of neighbors.
They picked me up, carried me on his back outside, and I saw the sky. I know I will be out.
The investigation now trying to determine what could have caused this horrifying collapse.
Why do you waste your breath on these brain dead chatters? Maybe they don't know. I think some of them come in with like honest intentions where they feel emotional and that they just maybe don't recognize it.
The Miami Herald publishing photos from a contractor taken just 36 hours before the tragedy. The contractor telling the paper there was standing water all over the parking garage, noting cracked concrete and severely corroded rebar under the pool. And overnight, the Wall Street Journal publishing a letter it says was sent by the condo board's president in April, warning that significant repairs were needed and that the building had deteriorated since that 2018 report, saying indeed the observable damage, such as in the garage, has gotten significantly worse since the initial inspection. When you can visually see the concrete spalling cracking, that means the rebar holding it together is rusting and deteriorating beneath the surface. Now, engineers looking at this disturbing video, frame by frame, showing the collapse.
When I look at the video, I feel it looks like it starts from the bottom of the building and works its way up, or a failure concentrated at the support or the bottom of the building.
A structural engineer who studied the 9/11 Pentagon attack has been hired by the city of Surfside to inspect the collapse, but this will be a very long process. That pile of rubble is also evidence, and it will be transported to a warehouse for inspection. But keep in mind, the focus right now, the priority is on search and rescue. Michael?
Absolutely there, Victor. And Victor, what are you hearing about the sister buildings?
Michael, that same engineer.
So yeah, that same engineer in the 80s also made another building in the same region.
That I just mentioned has also taken a look at the sister buildings, the north and the east towers, and he told us that there was nothing that he saw that showed him that they were in imminent danger of collapse. No mandatory evacuations have been ordered, but some residents have chosen to leave on their own. Michael?
All right, Victor Kendo, thank you so much.
Well, hey there,
Our main man, Ben Shabibo, took on the Oli London saga, the Oli London case. Oli London is a sick freak who wanted to be Jimin and said that they were Jimin, is a British rich kid and a reality TV psycho who now has decided that the very same people that, if he is genuine with their claim of being non-binary, and their pronouns, their preferred pronouns are ko and rian, for the record. So before you fucking yell at me about, like, you know, right? And Jim, is it Jin Min? I don't know how you say it. Jim Min is pulling off a Rachel Dolezal specifically so they can get a little bit of clout from the reactionary right in the United States of America. They are exactly what conservatives talk about when they say, what if someone was faking that they're being trans? Like, that's why we can't have this. Like, this person is, whether they're genuinely non-binary or not, I don't know. But this person is absolutely faking, like, being Korean and bastardizing the trans experience specifically so that reactionaries can use them as a talking point to say, see, we were right. When you can't find someone who's like a trans trender, you go and you make your own. It's like Rachel Dolezal, except Rachel Dolezal, he's like worked with the NAACP. You know what I'm saying?
Identifies Korean. That's just my culture. That's my home country. That's exactly how I look now.
But people are very angry at Oli London. What's making you so mad, bro? Bigotry? Oli London.
Oh my God, he changed his fucking editors. Like, he's just doing this shit now. It's so okay, I gotta pee. Fuck.
Is just as Korean as Caitlyn Jenner is a woman. Just as Korean. Big news coming out of Britain. I think groundbreaking news. A British influencer named Oli London is a non-binary person. They have identified as non-binary. But not only that, Oli London, because Oli London is a fan of apparently something called K-pop. I will admit that I was not informed on this particular trend. It is Korean pop. Oli London is a big fan of a particular Korean pop star named Park Ji-min, and decided to have $150,000 worth of plastic surgery in order to, quote unquote, look more Korean. And now Oli London identifies as trans Korean. Here's Oli London explaining his new identity.
Or anyone online as British, because I identify as Korean. That's just my culture. That's my home country. That's exactly how I look now. And I also identify as Jimin. That's my Korean name. But not only that, I know it's a little bit confusing for some people. Nobody's ever come out as Jimin or Korean, but this is something that you guys know if you've followed my journey for the last 8 years. I've really struggled with identity issues, with who I am.
Trans Koreans are Koreans.
So basically, I covered this last week where I talked about how this person was absolutely just using this as an opportunity to get like a little bit of clout, okay? And it's clear that that's what's going on, so that right-wing reactionaries could hop onto this and be like, trans people are silly. Trans people are ridiculous. Look, this person is like obviously not Korean, but they're claiming that they're Korean. Look at how crazy this person is. Look at how much of a freak this person is. To then turn around and literally say like, this represents all trans people. Okay? And they don't care about giving this person clout. I don't understand how you can turn around and, I don't know, seek shelter, I guess, or seek clout from an audience of people who literally want you to be euthanized. I don't get it. Because the reality is, like, this person and his followers think you are a freak. Okay? They want you to be murdered. They want you to be euthanized. So it's wild that you would turn around and seek refuge with them for a crumb of clout. You missed it, but Shabibo already said Oli is as Korean as Caitlyn Jenner is a woman. Hella transphobic out the gate. Yeah, oh, for sure. I already know. Here's one thing Oli London could have done if they genuinely wanted to be Korean. Learn the language. Live there for a couple years, and then apply for citizenship. But Oli London didn't do any of that. Okay? You call them a freak too? Yeah, he is they are a freak. Okay? They are a freak. They are a freak because anyone who seeks shelter with the Republican Party, if they are legitimately non-binary, whether they're legitimately non-binary or not, it doesn't even matter. They're a freak regardless because they think that they're fucking Jimin. Okay? Like, that's why they're freaks. If you think you are a BTS fan to the degree where you're like literally like, I am this person, I identify as this person, you're a freak. It's not about being non-binary. It's about being a different person and literally trying to wear their face. Okay? And I don't know why people have this immediate notion to be like, well, every experience is valid. That will be used against you to actually shit on well-documented and legitimate valid experiences by the likes of people like Oli London and the conservatives who will use that. Calling them a freak is a bit odd, sorry. No, the fuck it's not, dude. If you're literally getting plastic surgery to be Jimin, you're a fucking freak. It has nothing to do with being non-binary. It is a completely separate concept. If you can't fit that in your fucking brain, I don't know what to tell you. Okay? And by the way, there are a billion fucking cis people that are freaks too. And there are trans people who are freaks as well. Not because they're trans, but because they have freak-like fucking points of view on the planet. Okay? It has nothing to do with being trans. It has nothing to do with being non-binary and everything to do with literally getting plastic surgery to the tune of hundreds of thousands of fucking dollars to look like Jimin and claim you are a human being that exists on this planet. But go off. There are a lot of leftists who come from a place of empathy that get duped. Okay? Don't be like those leftists who get fucking duped by people like this. And they're like not even hiding it. They're literally like, I am going to fuck you over by adding Ben Shapiro and Tucker Carlson and Sean Hannity. And I am going to become a person that they can weaponize against you if you're a trans person. Okay? And you're out here literally like, no, sorry. It's a little fucked up that you're doing this.
Let me put it again. Trans Koreans are Koreans. Okay? And if I say it over and over, it becomes true. Now, you're going to have to explain to me why Oli London is not a Korean. Really? And if you say things like, well, Oli London has never been Korean. Yes, but trans women are not women. I mean, not a single trans woman has ever been a woman. Not one. And if you say, well, you know, Oli London doesn't even have any of the characteristics of being a Korean absent surgery, I will say to you, neither does a trans woman. And if you say to me that Oli London has never gone through the experience of actually being Korean, didn't grow up Korean, I'll say neither has a trans woman. There are zero distinctions, none, between being trans Korean and being a trans person of another sex. None. In fact, the only distinctions cut in favor of being transracial rather than transsexual. You can more easily shift your race, which is, in fact, a fluid concept.
See? This is why this shit sucks. You understand? I mean, you already understand this, especially if you're a trans person. You already understand that this is a project to be created to weaponize against your entire existence, as though there is not enough like discrimination already occurring. There's a difference between your race and your gender. This distinction, regardless of what people think, is obvious. That's precisely why gender is a social construct. Okay? It's all the different working parts that tie into our comprehension of what your gender is. There's a social construct that surrounds race as well. For sure. I get it. But someone who has made the legitimate effort to become a Korean national or a Korean person is entirely different than someone who's like, I'm a Korean person now because I got eye surgery. Like there is no dysphoria for race. Okay? That's also the same reason why we disregard people who feel as though they are like animals and stuff. Okay? Now I know that dysphoria is not a requirement as a trans medicalist opinion. I know it's not a requirement, but there is no way you can make this fucking argument, dude. Would you like to make this argument? Then go ahead. I want to have like, this destroys, here, you want to know what it is? You want to know why this is like really fucking annoying to me? Because this literally, unfortunately, if you're looking for me to like absolutely obliterate this point of view, I can't. Because people like this literally destroy this argument. And people like you in the chat who fucking turn around and advocate for certain things literally also help this argument craft. You get that, right? And I don't think you get that. I don't think you understand that. I think you want everything to be valid and want everything to be considered to be, like, you want everything to be a valid concept. And if that's your fucking point of view, then yeah, people like Oli London are going to shatter that. And just because dysphoria is not a requirement to be trans does not mean that like it is a legitimate thing that has been well documented throughout time. Okay? And makes up a pretty sizable chunk of trans people's existences. That doesn't make you a trans medicalist to recognize that. Aren't you making a bad argument? Then if it can be destroyed by this? There is no good argument against it, unfortunately. If you believe that like every experience and everything is fucking valid, if you believe that every experience is fucking valid unconditionally, then you have to acknowledge that Oli London has neo-pronouns ko and rian, and they're actually a Korean person, and maybe even Jimin. Okay? But that person is not playing in good faith. They're not like saying this is legitimate and this is actual. This is real. Do you get it? But you don't. You don't operate that way. And if you do, you're fucking crazy. I'm sorry. If you literally think that like this person is unironically fucking Korean now, and also their neo-pronouns are ko and rian, and that they're actually a Korean person, and that is similar to the trans experience, then you are playing into the fucking meme. They are not actually Korean, but still deserve to be respected in their identity as a non-binary person. Yeah, which is why I'm using they, them pronouns. Like, I'm not going to be like reactionary and be like, oh, it doesn't fucking matter. It doesn't matter. Like, I think that they're just looking for attention. I mean, they've shown that they're looking for attention. And I know that a lot of people get triggered by this because they're like, a lot of people claim non-binary people are looking for attention and that's why they're doing it. Well, this person is literally looking for attention. Wait, are people taking this seriously or is it just bait? I don't know. I feel like there's fucking weirdo like leftists in my audience that do get hypersensitive because I said that this is kind of similar to thinking that you're an animal or something. And unfortunately, things like that, I think, otherwise dilute. And gender is already complicated as it is, but this like otherwise dilutes a clear and coherent argument that you could launch towards gender and the trans existence. Who are you to tell if they're looking for attention or not? Why not let them identify as Korean if it makes you happy? It's completely subjective and they can be Korean if they want to be. See, this is what I mean. It's like, I mean, this person literally is just like they're baiting, right? They're just saying shit like this specifically so that they can like anger me into another stun lock. And if you come in here and you're like, we have to acknowledge their pronouns of ko and rian, like, I guess I'm too transphobic. I'm too old and therefore transphobic if that's like where we're at. So I'll just be honest with you. As someone who advocates for trans rights, I don't understand it. And it's like, it literally does not fit in my brain. Okay. Sorry. Will this be considered cultural appropriation? I don't know what the fuck this is. Are these same people okay with Rachel Dolezal? No, of course not. I mean, I love Rachel Dolezal. She's my queen.
Right? Race is a social construct, apparently. If race is a social construct, you should be able to fluidly shift between them, between the races, far more easily than sex, which is a biological concept deeply ingrained and rooted. So if you say trans women are...
I love this because, like, Ben doesn't think race is a social construct, and Ben doesn't think sex is a social, or not sex, but gender is a social construct. But for this argument, for the sake of this argument, he's like making it seem like he does believe in it. Just so he can fucking devalue trans people. Okay? You don't inherit your gender from your fucking parents in the same way that like your race is tied to your genes and to your parents and you are born a specific race. The social applications that we have revolving around race, the social construct of race revolves around the exclusion of non-whites, for example, like the one-drop rule, or the different ways that we have historically and still to this day oppress specific races. Transracial is the thing. I invented it. If you can be transgender, you can be transracial. Live your life to the fullest. Be who you want to be and spread love. Hashtag Oli London. Like, this person's getting like 10 fucking retweets, dude. They're not even doing a good enough job because the people that they're trying to get fucking clout from despise them. Like, they want them to be... Those people want them to be murdered. You know what I mean?
Women. And if you say that everybody's a bigot, if you refuse to acknowledge that trans women are women because they're not, then you need to tell me right now. Explain to me that if Oli London had a bunch of surgeries to appear like a woman or more like a woman and then said, I am a woman.
There are definitely ultra woke people that identify this way. I know a few that say they respond to the attack helicopter meme should just be the respect the person's attack helicopter identity. Yeah, extremely online weirdos, dude. Okay. Yeah, that's insane. Sorry. Like, you're not a fucking attack helicopter and Oli London is not Korean.
You would all be cheering the bravery. So brave, so wonderful, so non-stereotypical. So just, it's not playing on stereotypes. It's not reducing femininity to a bunch of surgeries and gender dysphoria.
It's super interesting where different generations, progressives draw the line on trans rights. I mean, what is the right? Like, what is the trans right that I'm overstepping? I need someone to describe to me how I'm overstepping a trans right when I say like Oli London isn't fucking Korean. Like, they're just wilding out and doing it specifically to hurt trans people. Like, that transracial things are not, it's not real to be transracial. They're not even a fucking Korean national, nor do they know Korean. Man, there's a whole rabbit hole of adult maps that identify as being underage. Obviously, really super online cringe shit, but I've seen it on Twitter. That's what I'm saying. Yes, dude. Yes. I'm sorry. I'm going to use like really fucking aggressive terms here, but some people have fucking mental health problems that either go unaddressed or rather they just lean into it. Okay. That's it. You don't have to look deeper into it to be like, oh, I wonder what's going on here. This must be a valid identity or a valid reason to feel this way. Like, no. And I know that people look at that and go, well, that's a slippery slope argument that you can extend to trans existence. And I don't think that you can do that. And I'm not doing that. It surprises me how you can say that this person cannot be Korean, but he can say that he has no gender. First of all, if you recognize that they're non-binary, you don't say he, you say they. Secondly, like, in the real world, there are going to be people who go to the extents to absolutely bastardize certain concepts for personal gain and clout. That does not make up the overwhelming majority of the trans experience in the same way that like conservatives will imply it does, to devalue trans people and make it seem like they're faking it for attention or faking it because they want to win like fucking weightlifting competitions, as though like that's a good enough reason to literally get fucking obliterated in every other part of your lives, like, because we make trans existence a living hell for trans people. But ultimately, you just have to recognize that some people are just fucking bad faith. I guess the place I draw the line is like when you claim you're a different race than you actually are, or when you claim that you're a different species than you actually are. Me saying that Ko and Rian are not valid pronouns for Oli London, like, I don't know how that discriminates against them. Or me saying that they're not actually fucking Korean.
For you? No. He would be a woman now. But if he identifies as Korean, absolutely not. Wrong. Can't do it. And so I say to you, during Pride Month, okay, it is Pride Month. Live your truth, Oli. Live your truth. Oli London is just as Korean as Caitlyn Jenner is a woman. Just as Korean as Caitlyn Jenner is a woman. Now you may say, well, Oli London is just a performance artist. That doesn't matter. You don't get to invade Oli London's truth. You don't get to tell Oli London what they are. By the way, Oli London has now declared their pronouns. Oli London's pronouns, it should be noted, are now they, them, core, en. I'm not kidding you. Those are the pronouns. And I've been told that there are many different types of pronouns by no less a source than the New York Times, that people have been using neo-pronouns. So there really is no problem here. And in fact, if you don't like this, you are a bigot. So apparently, Oli London then uploaded a flag of South Korea LGBT in Pride and said, yes, I identify as Korean. Yes, I'm non-binary. Yes, I look like Jimin. But none of this should be a reason to outcast me from society, to dehumanize.
Once you have accidentally correctly gendered a trans woman, it's over. Every argument goes back to that. Okay, boys? Here it is. Okay, and I'm using the gender neutral boys here. Ben Shapiro has correctly gendered Caitlyn Jenner in the past and has stopped himself and then literally turned around and misgendered Caitlyn Jenner deliberately because he does it out of pure malice. He does it because he's a grifter. Okay? That is the truth. So once you do that, you lose your I'm transphobic card. Okay? Sorry. You lose the argument to ever talk about a gender beyond like a social construct. That's it. Straight up. If you ever get caught correctly gendering a trans person, and then stop yourself and then literally misgender them. And there is a video of this. If you want, I'm sure someone in the chat can send me the link. Well, the moment you do that, you give the game away. Okay? I have to think. I'm pissed off about this story because now I have to think more about fucking race being a social construct and gender being a social construct and how these things are different from one another. And it just fucking frustrates me because it's just dumb, okay? Some things are just stupid. Some things just click and some things don't, okay?
And from
it's like a I'll know it when I see it type beat.
Orange is the New Black.
I never watched that show.
I've never watched transgender woman from Orange is the New Black.
I never watched that show.
I've never watched that show either, but she's on the cover of Time magazine.
Oh.
Or he's on the cover of Time magazine.
That's it. That's it. It's over. It's a wrap. It's GG's.
I've never watched that show.
You literally correctly gendered a trans woman and then stopped yourself and said he. It's done. You're doing it on purpose. And it's a perfect clip. Why is it a perfect clip? Because it betrays the values that Ben supposedly has. You recognize that that person is a woman. That person identifies as a woman. And you literally would never point to them and be like, can you get my bag from him? If the trans star on Orange is the New Black is out in the real world, okay, and she's sitting at a cafe, and she has your bag, and you point to a random person, you would never, in the Laverne Cox, thank you. In Ben Shabibo's world, he makes it seem like he would say, can you get my bag from him? Pointing to a trans woman. But you would never do that. You just would not do that. You wouldn't. So use that energy to recognize how, how you associate certain things with gender.
Humanize me and shame me for being who I am, a non-binary Korean person. London's manager says that London, quote, felt strongly attached to Korea and the Korean culture and feels much more connected to this than his own culture. But people are very angry at Oli London. You bigot.
So connected to Korean culture, yet like literally doesn't even know how to speak the language.
I don't understand why you're mad. Why are you mad? What's making you so mad, bro? Bigotry? I sense bigotry.
Doesn't even speak the language. Literally a year ago was saying, I'm not Korean. I'm not Korean. I just want to look like Jimin. Now is full-blown saying, I am Korean, and adding a bunch of reactionary Republicans specifically to join the cause and advocate for him to bastardize trans existence. Yeah, go ahead.
In fact, as Oli London, their self, now says, quote, how come all the woke mob will devote...
Says a lot about Ben that, like, they're correctly using the right pronouns of a person only when they agree with them, by the way. It's great.
all their time to threatening and bullying me for being non-binary, but won't speak out against human rights abuses in China? How come woke are silent on China's concentration camps, clampdown on democracy in Hong Kong, or oppression in Tibet? Not a terrible question, Oli London. Oli London also writes, I'm calling out the woke mob. These are the people that always preach about liberalism, tolerance, and respecting others, but are the same people sending me thousands of death threats, telling me to take my own life, and bullying me because they don't agree with who I am.
Maybe this is how we get reactionaries to believe in trans people. I don't know. Just have like fucking... to have, have a bunch of these fucking psychotic grifters come out so that reactionary propagandists can like act like they believe it.